Friday nights at 9 p.m., it's time to sit back, relax, and play Conspiracy Bingo with Echoplex Media. We've curated the best conspiracy theorists the internet has to offer and turned it into a live bingo game you can play for free with absolutely no prizes but bragging rights. You won't find a live stream like this anywhere else, and that's probably better for everyone else's mental health. Tune in every Friday at 9 p.m. Pacific at twitch.tv/EchoplexMedia and find our full schedule at echoplexmedia.com.
All right, everybody, welcome to this interview. This is a pre-recorded interview with Dr. Ivor Mectin. I'm recording this interview Saturday, January 28th, and you're probably hearing it tomorrow, Sunday, January 29th on the Plex. What's up, Dr. Ivor Mectin?
Well, a lot of stuff. So for this interview, I will actually be asleep at the time this airs, so I'll actually not see it until Monday. So, as the way the organisation works, yeah. So I'll just talk about myself. I'm Dr. Ivor Mectin. I'm a metallurgist from the UK. Back in 2014, I got really consumed with the whole 9/11 conspiracy stuff, and I eventually sort of pulled myself out of that by looking at a lot of fact-checking content. I've sort of had an interest in it ever since, and then this sort of my interest would have naturally picked up during the pandemic in this sort of stuff. And I now have my own podcast with Brent Lee and Stars of COVID. That's really good. It's called Lads on Tour. And I've met a lot of great people doing this because I was really nervous to have a social media account at one point and never would have done it. But I started one in 2021 and I didn't regret it.
I know of your podcast, but maybe my audience doesn't. What's the name of your podcast? And I assume it can be found on everything, right?
Yeah, it's Lads on Tour. You have to be a bit careful because there's one for Dungeons and Dragons. Well, if you like Dungeons and Dragons, no problem. But it's findable. Brent Lee has all the links to it. It's all uploaded to his YouTube channel. So Brent space Lee space TV on YouTube, and all the episodes will be on there.
And I've heard you on a few other shows lately too. You've been making a bit of the rounds.
Yeah. So I've been on Back to the Vax with Lydia Green, and I've also been on SDCIC. Someday I call it Conspiracy, to talk about that whole issue with that crap movie called My Son Hunter, and why all the information in it is essentially wrong.
That was such a good podcast episode. I had just found some dare call it conspiracy, and for a while, I guess they had probably over the holidays or whatever, they took a little break, and then it came back. It hit my feed again, and there were 3 episodes about the Hunter Biden laptop, and I had a bunch of errands to run that day, so it was perfect. It's like riding my bike around San Jose, listening to you guys dunk on that movie. We actually watched that movie on stream, because having those people sue me for copyright would be one of them good problems. So I could grift so hard if those people. I could grift so hard if those people sued me for copyright.
It's such a dreadful movie.
I like what, and you would I don't know if it was you specifically, but on the pod you all had mentioned that the way in which they broke the fourth wall was just so cringe and terrible.
Yeah, it really was, because I think it could have actually been a bit decent, because when it sort of went into his backstory about his family and how he lost them and how he's sort of resorting to drugs and that to try and fill that hole, I actually find that aspect really interesting, because I didn't actually know anything really about Hunter Biden's life, and I thought, is this going to be a bit more like a serious drama discussing these issues? And then it just went off the rails after that, and they're breaking the fourth wall, and they're talking about how Joe Biden has something on his burger or something like that, and CNN said it was true. Just absurd.
Yeah, it was bad. The music was bad in it, and there some of the people in my community are really into film, and they were pointing out certain things that happen maybe when union people won't work on your film, and certain things aren't right about shots and the way things are set up in the background and whatnot. I would have never noticed that stuff, but there's some movie buffs in my community who were like, oh, look at that in the background, should have hired union. And But not for nothing, the production was pretty slick. The editing was really good, and I think that's just because it was well funded. Because it was not designed like to make money. It was designed as a piece of political propaganda.
Yeah, definitely. And there's also the fact that he has an American accent for the first half hour of the movie, and then he just doesn't. That was also another thing I noticed.
Right, because the actor who played Hunter is a British guy, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he also, what did he say? He said, like, on Twitter recently that women who get abortion are as immoral as rapists or something like that. He's really vile.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I mean, I know some people in my personal life who are anti-abortion, but they don't make statements like that. You know what I'm saying? That's like a wild thing to say. But I mean, it's not surprising because who else is going to work on that kind of movie?
Yeah.
I was surprised not to see James Woods in it, to be perfectly honest. Or who's that other guy?
Yeah,
Kevin Sorbo?
Oh, yeah, that guy. I remember when he played that really cringy atheist in that movie. I didn't actually watch it, but I watched all the YouTube content about it. God's Not Dead, that was it, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was it was so bad. I was like, I've met that atheist and I don't like that atheist either, but that's not most people who don't believe in God, actually. Most people, like most people who do believe in God, most people who don't believe in God are actually just pretty chill and don't spend a whole lot of time thinking about
it. Yeah. Same here, really.
So you're on the second edition of this book. What possessed you to write this book? Because it says the ultimate misinformation guide, and I feel like that sounds like a well, it doesn't say ultimate misinformation guide. It says ultimate misinformation. It sounds like this is a pretty big undertaking to write a book about COVID misinformation. There's just so much stuff. There was like at the beginning, it didn't exist. It was the flu, but it either didn't exist and it was the flu at the same time. How did you go about gathering the information for this and putting it together in like a digestible format? Because I feel like there was just so much going on and everything was changing so quickly in the misinformation sphere that it was, you had to pick some method by which to organize the misinformation. And I'm curious how you went about that.
Oh yeah. So how the book actually started was I got into a blog called, I think, Respectful Incidents, that's it, by David Gorski. Have you heard of him?
Yeah, that's one of my next big attempts at a get for this show, actually, because we're we're always kind of chopping it up on Twitter. He's like a real friendly guy, actually. He doesn't. Oh yeah. He doesn't. I like him a lot because he's very, very happy and willing to interact with like lay people who are also like anti-conspiracy theory, and I like that a lot about him. He doesn't seem like he's an elitist or whatever.
Yeah, so I sort of just stumbled across his blog somewhere, and I think this was like what was it? It was sort of early 2021, I think. So I was just sort of reading that, and I noticed he also sort of had a fan mail section. So I sent him some fan mail because normally I sort of seen him on Twitter and that. I didn't even have an account at this point, but I'd seen him there and he was all getting these hate messages all the time. So I thought I'll send him a nice message. And yeah, I'd sort of designed a little bit of satire about the pandemic just for my friends. So this was one of them was about like what would happen if Twitter was around in like World War II when Britain is being attacked. There'd be people saying the Luftwaffe doesn't exist and all their planes are holograms and stuff like that. You'd find that sort of stuff online. And also I did like a bingo card of all the anti-vax talking points. It's on one of the first pages of the book, actually. And it's like, the stuff like it contains a microchip, just stuff I'd seen really. And I sent that to him and he liked it. So I thought, you know what? That had 25 talking points on it, that bingo card. I think I could easily expand it out just by the stuff I've seen. So I sort of carried on and I thought I'll do 10 by 10. So 100. And that was quite easily possible. I could fill that out in like a few days. So I thought, how far could this be pushed? I should probably write a book about this. And that's basically the story. So I sent that email to David Gorski, the first one, just after I got my first vax. So yeah, that was that's sort of the story of how it started.
You should report that to VAERS that the first vaccine made you email David Gorski.
Yeah, I might have to like post a screenshot of that actually. Because I haven't done it.
That's funny you mention a bingo card. We have a show called Conspiracy Bingo, and we literally have a bingo card.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of it, yeah.
There's hundreds of things on our bingo card because we, it uses a site that like randomizes them. So there's hundreds of concepts that might show up on people's bingo cards. And people like actively play during the show. It's been like, it was like a game changer for us just adding that bingo card to a show. We previously called it Deconstructing Derp. And I thought that was kind of a stupid name. So once we changed
it has an alliteration to it.
But Conspiracy Bingo is a better name for a show, right?
Yeah,
and it
definitely
encourages like audience participation, and makes it more. It to some extent takes sometimes rather heavy subject matter and makes it a little more light and fun, which is kind of important too, because you could go into a pretty deep pit of despair, either producing or just consuming content that's critical of conspiracy theories, because you could start to think that there's no hope. And I mean, sometimes I think that sometimes I think we've lost. When you were
that one,
go ahead.
I say that one's sort of an awkward one with regards to whether we lost or not, because I mean in the end most people did choose vaccination, didn't they? We sort of got it to, like, in Britain, it's 95% of adults, did get it. So I think in many ways it was a success, but I think there's sort of like a community which is now larger than it ever would have been, which is a lot more hardcore now than they ever would have been, like, with regards to conspiracy theories, definitely.
Yeah, I think that it's unfortunate that this happened while QAnon was big. I think that was like a very unfortunate coincidence.
Yeah, I don't know that much about QAnon, to be fair. I know the adrenochrome, that, Joe Biden is looking young by drinking children's blood or whatever, but it's obviously not being very successful for it.
Right. And QAnon's like just a meta conspiracy that kind of sucked up all the other conspiracy movements, and there's elements of the old blood libel conspiracy in it, and it just kind of My take is that it turned up the temperature on the rhetoric coming out of the anti-vax movement. It's not that every anti-vaxxer ended up believing in the adrenochrome or whatever. It's just that it kind of laid a foundation for, I guess I'd say, like, more violent rhetoric, more sort of satanic panic rhetoric around different conspiracy theories. And I think that was, that definitely turned up the temperature on the anti-vax movement, and it didn't help. And, there's always some kind of, it's always in the background of our society, this fear of Satanism and satanic rituals. It goes back very, very far. Usually, and the targets, unfortunately, usually end up being Jewish people. No matter what version it takes, actually, it ends up being the Jews, which sucks. Like, it really sucks. And it at first, you had people going, "Oh, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I'm just against this vaccine." And now all those very same people that were doing that are now just full-on anti-vaxxers. They're no longer just against the COVID vaccine. People like...
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I think they've realized that the market of being against the COVID one is super small now, because most people who were skeptical of this one but were totally okay with all the others, as time's burned on, that group has got smaller and smaller and smaller, because they eventually came round to it after it had been out for a year or two. Well, in my country, I can't speak for all countries, but that happened. So I think now, like, it's mostly just people who are against all, and the market is definitely going to have to cater for that. Pierre Corey is now saying polio vaccine activism was a massive killer in the 20th century and stuff like that. They're going to have to cater to that, kind of like exactly what Andrew Wakefield did. He started out with, I'm just against this new MMR one, and then it became, he's against all now. He talks about all.
Right. And
so, yeah,
some portion of those who started out like as not the propagandists, but the propagandized, who started out as just being skeptical of the COVID vaccine, are now just full on anti-vaxxers because they followed the leader, you know?
Yeah.
And Pierre Corey's a good one to bring up because he certainly was like, I don't know how, you know, because they're all, every one of these people they trot out, they're like, this is a genius in the field of this, that, or the other. And I'm like, how many geniuses are there? My God. How many like paradigm shifting scientists are there in any given generation of human beings? So I don't, you know, a lot of these people got their resumes sort of puffed up by this movement too.
For sure.
And that's appealing, I think, especially if you notice like a lot of the people, the scientists that they're trotting out are like at the end of their careers. They're older people. They're in their 60s. It might be time to retire, and that's fine. My parents are retired people. There's nothing wrong with being retired people, but that might be really alluring as you're about to end your career. You get to start this whole new journey where now you're an expert going against the consensus, and now you're a freedom fighter and a warrior for the truth. Like, most people don't get to do that in retirement, right? Most people, when they become pensioners or retirees, play a little shuffleboard. Hopefully, if they did well, they get to go on some cruises, take some vacations, hang out with the grandkids, you know, in today's day and age, financially help their offspring because of the, you know, odd things that have happened to our economy. Like, it's boring being retired, right? So for people like Pierre Corey and Robert Malone, who are, you know, they're getting up there in age, this has got to be a lot more exciting than being on a cruise playing shuffleboard.
Yeah, definitely. And with regards to CV puffing, I'll give you a massive example of that. There's a guy called Michael Yeadon, and whenever you see him, it says like Vice President of Pfizer. And I suppose it's true in the most technical sense. But the reality is he wasn't vice president of the entire company. He was vice president of like a department of 30 people, which isn't really nearly as impressive.
Right. People who, it's interesting that conspiracy theorists oftentimes don't understand big bureaucracy, because you'd think that'd be a thing that they would look into. Like, how does this bureaucracy work? Since I'm so, vehemently against this bureaucracy, maybe I should find out how it works. And yeah, at a company like that, there's hundreds of vice presidents, and their vice president, and some of them are, the vice president of marketing is actually, they have a lot of people under them. But you're right, there are vice presidents who have 30, 40 people working under them, and they're, they've accomplished in their field. Probably you don't get that title for nothing, but they could go wackadoo just like anybody else.
Yeah, and the other hilarious example of CV pumping is, have you heard of Rashid Buttar?
Yes.
Yes, he was the guy who said he worked with someone who developed an Australian accent after a flu vaccine. That was really hilarious. But on his YouTube page, when he still had it, I think it got banned in the end, he had all these news organisations, and they were all mainstream news, like ABC, etc. But the hilarious thing is all the reports by those news agencies were calling him a crank. He was putting it on his YouTube page, like, I've been featured on this news website.
It's like a thing Scientology does, actually. They have ads where at the beginning of the ad, they'll show a bunch of news organizations, and it'll be NBC, and it'll just say Scientology, and then it'll cut to some other news organization saying Scientology. And we do a show about cults on Thursday nights, and we've seen all those videos that they're showing the beginnings of, and all those videos are critical of the Church of Scientology. They're not it's the same thing. It's you can say we were referenced in the news, and you don't have to tell them what the news said about you.
Yeah, I mean, a serial killer can make the same claim to fame, can't they?
Yeah, that'd be funny if there was an ad for Charlie Manson like that. It was like... And I mean, the biggest one when you're talking about CV pumping is Robert Malone, by far.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, he worked on. I think he did 2 papers about it in the 80s, where there was a minor innovation which didn't even evoke an immune response, and none of the stuff he developed is used today. And also, on one of the papers, he's not even primary author. So he talks about how he's been suppressed, but the guy who's being suppressed really is the guy who was the primary author on the damn paper. Yeah, he's the one who's being ignored. It's totally pumped CV, like inventor, doesn't make any sense.
I mean,
that context to say singular inventor.
Yeah, I mean, my first impression on that is just a fairly like scientifically literate human being is that like theirs is like on anything important now, it's a team of people. There is no inventor of.
Yeah.
It's you work on a team, and usually some asshole takes all the credit. Don't get me wrong. That's like not.
Yeah.
That's a problem. But it's like, to go around saying you invented the mRNA vaccine technology. I mean, that's a big claim, because you're not just claiming to have invented like this little thing. You're claiming to have invented an entire technology. And so that just set off my alarm bells immediately when I first saw him on Brett Weinstein's show. I was like, this guy didn't invent that shit. I was like, my first guess was this guy was probably on a team and took credit for it. And then my chat looked into it, and that's not even really the case.
Yeah. Because, I believe there's about 70 peer-reviewed papers from zero to what we have today. Yeah, so he was involved in like one of them.
Yeah, and what we had.
And I mean,
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Even if he was the singular inventor, it's a bit like saying the Wright brothers should be seen as the authority on Boeing 777s. It's totally absurd.
Best we could figure, because my chat was, I don't know if you remember that infamous episode of Dark Horse where Brett had Robert Malone and Steve Kirsch on.
Oh yeah,
the one where they talked about the baby's head exploding.
Oh, I haven't seen that actually. I thought the one I remember is the one where he claimed that if everyone took ivermectin for a month, no one would die of COVID ever again, or something like that.
Oh, I think we're talking about the same video. It's just that there were so many wild claims made in that video that it would be easy maybe for me to have remembered one of the wild claims specifically and someone else to have forgotten about any specific wild claim in that video. We started I don't know if you know, because you're not an American, maybe you don't know about this guy. There's a guy, Jim Cramer, who does like financial news in the United States. And he's like always yelling about stocks. I don't know.
Oh, that guy, yeah. And I remember the story where he was right before 2008 financial crash. He was saying, this stock's good, this stock's good, this stock's good. And then it became worthless a day later or something like that.
Yeah, we've been calling Steve Kirsch anti-vax Jim Cramer.
Yeah, he's made just insane claims. He has like more people from vaccines than the Holocaust and stuff like that.
Yeah, he's also one of these like guys that's like, debate me. And then anybody that's like, hey, I'll talk to you. He blocks them on Twitter.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not like a debate bro or anything, but if I'm like, hey, I have this position, if anybody wants to talk to me about it, who disagrees with me, come get some. And I'm not going to block everybody who then agrees to do it. Like,
that's ridiculous.
It's been such a wild ride. I remember when we started doing our podcast, we had people coming to us going, hey, you guys would do a lot better if you just did normal news, if you weren't so focused on conspiracy communities. This stuff isn't really that important. And now I feel kind of vindicated. I'm like, excuse you? Excuse you? Because I was like saying this stuff is going to be a problem. It already was a problem, but when we started, we were mostly talking about people who believed in chemtrails and the flat earth, because that stuff was really big around 2014, 2015. But this stuff isn't that different, especially in the way people formulate what we can loosely refer to as their arguments. It's all the same stuff. It's like, oh, they're not telling you this. Oh, this is the actual expert. This person knows about what's happening in the sky. Why do you believe NASA about the globe Earth? It's the same thing as like, why do you trust Pfizer to make a vaccine? It's the same set of arguments. It's just recycled. And this time it's got like I don't think the chemtrails movement had much of a body count, right? So things have become much more important, and it's much more important to knock these kinds of things down when you can.
Yeah, because it's always what have you heard of Skeptic of the North?
Sounds familiar, but I can't say that I could tell you anything about this person.
Yeah, so he was one of the guys from Britain, who did a lot of conspiracy content. I think he doesn't do it anymore, but his videos are still up. I think they were down at one point, but he did a video called, I think it's Epistemology, which is sort of like he was a 9/11 truther, and he talked to someone who was a young Earth creationist. That's it. And the young Earth creationists went into like the tirade, like all these experts, they're being paid by a secret body and they're making money to suppress, the church and stuff like this, and the standard speech, that. But this is like true in all of the movements, like. If you go to Holocaust deniers, they'll say, the Jews are suppressing the evidence and paying all these experts off or whatever. Like, it's always just there's a body who doesn't want you to find out about it. And, we can dismiss any evidence because it's all, funded by them and stuff like that. It was a really good video. I'm sort of butchering it there a bit, but I'll definitely advise anyone to watch it.
It's this, and we noticed this a long time ago. It's as soon as somebody provides evidence that the conspiracy is wrong, now you just make the conspiracy bigger to include whoever's providing the evidence that the conspiracy is wrong.
Yeah.
It just gets so big eventually that everyone's in on it. I remember a friend of ours went to like a chemtrail event and got up during Q&A and said, hey, it seems like there's a lot of people employed in this industry. How would I apply to get a job in the chemtrails industry? And the people that were giving the presentation, they got so pissed. They got so pissed off at this guy. It was so funny. He brought a recorder too. The recording of it's actually on our website. Maybe I'll try to remember to link it in the notes for this, but I won't remember to link it in the notes for this. I never remember to do that stuff. Go ahead.
I'm actually a metallurgist, so I could work in this.
Oh yeah. You should get a job. You should get a job in the, I don't know, they need special wings, I think, for the chemtrails. I don't know. Special nozzles. So
the funny thing about chemtrails is they say they're spraying biological weapons, but a jet engine is like way over 1,000 degrees Celsius. So like no biological weapon is surviving that.
It's funny, if you ask 10 different chemtrail people, they'll probably give you 10 different answers as to what's happening and why. Like, either it's aluminum. A lot of them are saying it's aluminum, which is weird. And then they find aluminum in the soil, and I'm like, that's like one of the most common elements on the planet. Of course you found it in the soil. Some of them say it's nozzles that are just near the engine.
All right. Yeah.
There was this interesting. There was an interesting video I saw. It was an aircraft designer who was asked about chemtrails at some event, and he just said, to get any appreciable amount of substance up into the air is just going to require a lot of lift and thrust, and I don't see how this dispersal method would be efficient if you wanted to drop a bunch of stuff on a population. He's like, you don't have to take something up to 30,000 feet to drop it on a city. And I was like, that's really smart. He was like, if I wanted to drop something on a city, I wouldn't use a jet at 30,000 feet. He's like, that seems like an inaccurate dispersal method. I was like, that's really smart. I never thought about that.
Yeah, it is true often with chemical weapons as well. They're like super lethal, like when they're indoors but the moment they get into open air, they just disperse away and become non-lethal quite quickly.
Thankfully.
So that's, another thing, yeah. So Yeah, I think I remember somebody talking about a terrorist attack in Japan where they had a load of gas which could potentially have killed like thousands of people.
Was that
just got out in the air, and then
Shinrikyo.
I think so. Yeah.
That was a cult in Japan.
Yeah.
That's one of the ones I've been wanting to look into more in our cult show. But the problem is, it's not a problem really, but the problem for me is that a lot of the original like material about it is in Japanese, and I don't speak Japanese.
Yeah.
So it's like a little difficult to cover, because then the U.S. coverage of it was like just kind of really quick hits on the news about it. There wasn't anything like, you weren't able to get any like of the source material from the cult in English, because why would they do it in English? They're a cult in Japan. Most people in Japan speak Japanese, so it's it's hard. I wanted to ask you, and because one of the things I started to notice was that not only are some of these kind of COVID vaccine deniers or COVID propagandists upping the ante as far as like, oh, now all the vaccines are bad. I'm also starting to see some like HIV/AIDS denial coming out of some of these people.
Oh, for sure.
Particularly Brett Weinstein started to flirt with it a little bit.
I did not actually know that. I don't follow him as much. Definitely RFK Jr. in his Real Anthony Fauci book really goes into it hard. He talks with germ theory denier Tom Cowan and Peter Duesberg, or as I call him, Peter Doucheberg. Yeah. About that, like he dedicates full chapters to it. I believe Robert Malone as well on his Rogan appearance said the original case of cancel culture was them going after Peter Doucheberg. Like that was the original example of cancel culture. But the hilarious thing about that story is he still has his job today. He never lost it. He was never cancelled because it was academic freedom for him to deny AIDS and cause all the problems he did in a lot of African countries. But so he wasn't ever cancelled. But that is coming back, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I'm a gay man of a certain age. I'm maybe 10 years too young to have seen like the worst of it, but there are people I used to know who I used to know because of HIV/AIDS, and that's disgusting. It's absolutely sick. Like it's I can find humor in a lot of stuff, but that AIDS denial stuff, man, I don't run it on my stream. I don't make fun of it. There's just some kinds of energy I don't like to put out there in the world, and that stuff is absolutely disgusting. And I didn't have no love for Brett Weinstein prior, but when I saw him start to do that, I was like, oh, now you can really go fuck yourself. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. That's really bad. That is. What I was going to say, there's also a guy at the British Medical Journal who's just a disgrace, who he does a lot of COVID vaccine stuff, but he signed an AIDS denial petition, and he's never reneged on it. It's called Peter Doshi. And he's like one of the biggest editors of the top medical journal in Britain. Just
He sounds like a good candidate for actual cancel culture, if you ask me. I don't think I think that sounds like there's some standards and practices there that might be applied if you're one of the editors for any well-respected medical journal. I feel like you start going into that stuff, you should be the former editor of a medical journal, or disgraced former editor of a medical journal.
Yeah, they always defend him, though. I think people have brought it up in the past, but.
He has every right to say it, but I don't think you don't have a right to be the editor of a medical journal.
Yeah, I don't think you have a right to that platform.
I wonder how
I don't think saying that stuff should be illegal, but I do think you shouldn't mess with it as a journal.
I shouldn't be saying that stuff as a layperson either. I don't even hold any position of authority on any of these matters, and I'm still a monster if I'm running around promoting that stuff. But like we were saying, these people, they're all going to have to up the ante, or their shtick is going to get tired.
Yeah, definitely. Because I saw it this morning. There's a big lawsuit going around where Malone, I think, is suing one of the or two of the other ones. Can't remember who it was, but they're suing each other now. And Malone and McCullough are going to war because McCullough has been promoting all those supplements, ain't it? And Yeah, but it's kind of funny, you know, Malone calling McCullough a grifter. Like, it takes one to know one at that point, doesn't it? You know, he's got his $500,000 in Substack income this year or whatever.
It's
really cashing in.
It's a lot of these movements end up doing that. We watched all the flat earthers do that. Like, we were covering, there was this whole thing where these 3 or 4 flat earthers were just absolutely like at war with each other, and it was so funny because they got so personal because they were all friends beforehand or whatever, and then like as the pie started to shrink, as the flat earth movement started to kind of die, they had to fight over the scraps of what was left of that movement, and they ended up really, you know, acting the fool. I forget even, I remember the one guy name was JM Truth, and he ended up like, they were all somewhere with a bunch of camera equipment that they had rented, and somebody else had signed for the camera equipment, and he had rented the car, so he just left everybody behind and stole the camera equipment that somebody else had signed for on the rental. You know, it's like sort of madcap adventure version of like the kinds of infighting that you know, we're gonna, you know, there's infighting in the anti-vax community too. It's not like our like group or whatever is immune from this. People in our communities snipe at each other too. So it's like, but it's funny to watch as these people snipe at each other. And I think it's just a limited pie, right? There's not enough people for everyone's platform to keep growing. So they're going to have to take each other out.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. The money is shrinking now, I think, as we head into 2023. Like, I think the heyday is over for sort of like anti-vax. It will likely gradually burn away, because it's similar things sort of happened in Britain in the 90s when you had Andrew Wankfield coming up with his fake study to say vaccines caused autism. It like really screwed with the vaccination rates for a few years after, and then it went back up to normal and even a little bit higher than before. So I think that it's going to get smaller. It's going less viral now. They're going to have to fight each other to determine the longevity.
Yeah, even on Twitter,
who's going to get to keep it.
Even on Twitter, where it's like all gas, no brakes now, the stuff, it just doesn't seem to get the reach that it was getting before. And I think that you're right. And even in America, I know our vaccination rate isn't as high as the UK, but it's still pretty high. I think the US, like at least something like 75% of people have had at least 2 shots, something like that. Yeah. And so, so that being the case, the COVID is still spreading, but less people are getting really sick from it, and it's like less scary, I guess. And so like there's just less fear and anxiety around it. And I think that as that fear and anxiety around COVID wanes, people are going to be less and less inclined to be fervent supporters of the people who are spreading the anti-vax message, because in the end, these people live on donations, right? It's the same model I use for what I'm doing. I live on donations and merch sales and stuff. And, you know, I'm actually kind of worried about what's going to happen as all this dies down. But I mean, that we call that one of them good problems, right?
Yeah.
If I have to go back to making fun of chemtrails and flat earth, I mean, that's fine.
Because the reality is we are totally parasitic on their existence, aren't we?
Yeah.
Without them, we don't exist.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to thank Brett Weinstein for building up my channel. Because for a while we were just like after we'd record our podcasts or whatever during the after show or the post game or whatever, it would be just straight up. We'd just watch the Dark Horse. I'm an expert on that guy. Have any of these people tried to send their army of weirdos after you on Twitter before?
Oh, yes. So Steve Kirsch, he came for me once. He actually ratioed me. It was quite sad in a way. But basically, I put out a tweet saying, like, there's people, it was a quote tweet of someone else saying, there's just no money in anti-vax. It's so much more lucrative to be pro-vax as a doctor. And then I just went in, saying, RFK Jr., $57 million in the bank, Del Bigtree, $10 million. Andrew Wakefield, 13 million, etc., just going down the list. And then Steve Kirsch sort of like tried to come in and flex in my responses. And he said something like, why didn't you include me on your list? I made my money with multi-billion-dollar tech companies. And I kind of found that weird, because why would you want to be added to a list of parasitic grifters?
Well, he tried to latch on to, like, Steve Kirsch is like, he's like a hanger-on in a lot of ways in this movement, because he doesn't have any, he can't even like claim to have any medical expertise. Like, he's a Silicon Valley guy. I swear that he got involved with this through the Weinsteins, through Peter Thiel. That's my conspiracy theory. I think it all comes back to Peter Thiel, but that's because I'm a man of a certain age who grew up in Silicon Valley, and I fucking hate Peter Thiel. But
I've never even heard of him, so I can't say.
He's like Eric Weinstein works for his venture firm.
Okay, right.
He's Eric Weinstein's boss, which is, but Brett came after me once because I did this thread like the night of that infamous video that he had Robert Malone and Steve Kirsch on. I wasn't streaming. I think my internet was acting wonky or something, or maybe it was like a Monday and we weren't up or whatever. So I just did a thread going through his video where I kind of pulled out little clips of his video and was like talking shit. And, I did it kind of late at night and I went to bed. I didn't really think anything of it. Then I woke up and I had like a bunch of DMs from people and my notifications were all lit up. And a bunch of this guy, because he had like quote tweeted me when I had said something particularly nasty about him in one of the tweets, as is my way. And he quote tweeted me, and all these like weird dorks were like in my comments. And I was like, well, that's weird. Let me check my DMs, because I was like, I want to make sure like nobody's like threatening me. Like I was a little concerned at first, but then all the DMs were like people in the IDW critique sphere, one of whom was like, oh, are you okay? Are you okay? These people are coming after you. And I just replied, I'm like, this is the best thing that ever happened. I'm like, I'm here for this, baby. And so like over the course of the day, I was like trying to engage with these people, and they were like trying to insult me. And I'm like, I'm better at this than you. And a lot of them ended up blocking me after Brett like tried to send his people after me. And so I like declared victory and then just muted a bunch of threads after, because there was nothing left to do there.
Oh yeah.
Because
I remember that thread. Yeah. The amount of notifications, you could step away from half an hour and you've got 50 of them or something like that.
Yeah. And some people, don't get me wrong, like it's really bad. Like some people get like brigaded on Twitter and they end up like, they get their home address fucking published, and like all kinds of that stuff happens. And if that stuff started happening, I would have been very concerned. But that didn't happen. It was just a bunch of weird Brett Weinstein fans, like in my mentions, trying to like dunk on me. And I'm like, none of you are good at this. Somebody was like, you're in such bad faith that bad faith doesn't mean anything anymore. And I was like, what? And I linked them to my podcast, the Intellectual Dollar Tree. It says entering the marketplace of ideas in bad faith is like the tagline of the show. I'm like, yes, I come to all of this in bad faith because I don't like any of you and you can all go fuck yourselves. And that person blocks me after like, because I don't actually come to this stuff in bad faith, right? I believe most of what I'm saying, and I'm trying to like help people spot patterns of behavior among those who would deceive you to either raise money or raise their own profile. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm a lay person who has been monitoring cults and conspiracy movements for much of my adult life. And my skill set is spotting the patterns of behavior and knowing what it looks like when someone's trying to manipulate you. And, it's just really, really, really odd ending up in this fight where like on my side is everybody from like academics to people who are just trolls. And it's just such a weird coalition of people who have gone after these hucksters and frauds. It's strange groupings of people for sure.
Yeah. There's a lot of academics are sort of becoming Twitter savvy now, which I really like. Some of the younger ones, but some of the older ones as well. But that's really good.
Yeah, it kind of sucks that that some virologist who's doing work has to take time out of their day to like go dunk on Robert Malone. I mean, that person could be doing something like much more valuable with their time, but like, you know, it's like maybe you wake up and you go damage report, you know, and you got to do what you got to do. It's real odd. It's real odd. I was a bit surprised that the so-called intellectual dark web, a lot of them ended up going anti-vaccine. I never would have like predicted that. Maybe Brett Weinstein, but like I didn't think that like Dave Rubin and like Eric Weinstein, I didn't think any of those people were going to go that way. And it was real surprising to me. There's even you can find old tweets of Brett Weinstein telling people like that know that anti-vaccine stuff is bad and that you should get vaccines. It's just really crazy. I don't know what happened. Like,
yeah, I think audience capture is a really big thing with regards to that. Definitely, like if you say whatever. Certain things about restrictions, which, you know, there may be merits, there may not be. But then, like, eventually you attract an audience who is against vaccines as well. So if you want to maintain it, you've got to keep... you've got to play to that audience if you want the donations, right? That's true for any show that lives on donations.
Yeah, I guess that's part of it. And maybe, like, you know, maybe the reason that, for example, Sam Harris didn't go that way is because I don't know if you know, that guy's mom was like a producer or director of the Golden Girls, and that guy would have never had to work a day in his life if he didn't want to. And so like he didn't need the money in any way, shape, or form. There was like the amount of there was like no upside for him going that way. And I think at first Eric Weinstein wasn't questioning the vaccine because, I mean, he works for a venture capital firm. I think the dude's worth $50 million or something like that. And so there was no incentive for him, but he's such an egomaniac that he eventually had to do it because he saw Brett getting popular and he was like, well, excuse me, I am the actual expert here. One thing I wanted to ask you about and see what you think about this, because I bounce this off a lot of people, is in these conspiracy communities, insofar as sometimes they operate like cults, they operate like a distributed cult. And what I see happening is someone will get propagandized, right? Let's just say their name is Cheryl. Cheryl gets propagandized, and now Cheryl is spreading, you know, posting a bunch of stuff. Now Cheryl gets 5, 6, 7,000 followers. And now Cheryl's the one doing the propagandizing. And it's like this cycle where now you're not the consumer of the content, you're now the creator, even if you're just repurposing other people's content. And I guess there's not really a question there. I just wanted to know, like, kind of if you've noticed that dynamic and if you have any thoughts about it.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's people who, you know, aren't like anyone really in this community who've just blown up and got millions of followers. Just, you know, they'll tweet one thing, it goes viral, they get the dopamine hit, they just keep going further and further in that direction and getting more extreme, and then all of a sudden they're a famous for being famous, well, famous for Twitter nonsense influencer.
Yeah, it's not,
who's got like hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, it's almost like a I don't know, like the way BitTorrent works versus like the way you would just download something somewhere else. There's all these nodes where it's like more distributed because of social media. And it's, you know, it's still got, you know, elements of like cults and control groups where there's like people have like in language and out language. People make up words. They go after their critics. Like, but it's there's just all these, everything from, a Telegram group with 800 people run by somebody all the way up to like, somebody huge like Del Bigtree. And it's just, it's more difficult to kind of combat it when the lines get blurred between like the victims of propaganda and the perpetrators of propaganda. And it's hard to know. For me, it's like hard to know, am I punching down at this particular content creator? Have they actually been hoodwinked and that through no fault of their own, they're spreading this information? And, yeah, it's weird because, I do so many hours of content a week that I can't just focus on Del Bigtree. I have to be always like looking for new people that are, creating their own little content farms. And I just, I guess it's good that people are out there doing that, but it also like, it just gets so confusing and there's just so many people like doing this now. I don't know. Are you on Telegram at all?
Oh no, I stay away from that. I value my sanity too much.
My Telegram feed is terrifying. And it's all these people nobody have ever heard of.
A lot of neo-Nazi.
Yeah. I don't really, I try not to cover too much of that stuff. That's very troubling.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But there's all these people that you've never heard of, right? And they have, 100,000 people in their Telegram, and sure, there's, billions of people on the planet and it's a drop in the bucket, but they have 100,000 people in their Telegram and nobody's ever heard of them outside of their Telegram group. And it's like, how do you fight that? It's not like InfoWars where everybody knows what it is and you just sue them out of existence. It's a whole different scenario with just all these like basically miniature cults of personality around conspiracism. Everything from like Elvis is still alive and his name is Bob to Bob Joyce. I'm not kidding. And the dude that runs the Telegram group is the guy who he claims to be Elvis. I'm not kidding. And
right. Wow.
And it seems like the people in there believe it. And like, it's so much harder to deal with these kinds of movements if they're like diffuse, distributed. And I just don't know, what we can do going forward, because I feel like the trend is towards more smaller communities as you were saying, as the money starts to dry up, we're going to be dealing with more smaller communities with less eyes on them. And the people are going to be like the incentive to up the ante is going to be greater and greater. We're going to start, we're going to start to see things that nobody even had eyes on that are going to start to be a problem.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's especially there is maybe a fear, maybe not, of potential terrorism coming from here as well. If it's going to be really, really small, really, really radicalized movements.
Well, I mean, we saw that. This is playing out kind of the same way that the men's rights movement played out, and there was terrorism that came out of the men's rights movement. I don't know if you know about the guy Elliot Rodger, who.
Oh yeah, I know that one. There's been one or two of them in Britain as well.
Yeah, and I feel like some of this stuff is kind of on that trajectory where, YouTube got rid of a bunch of that stuff, like the most misogynistic, the most terrifying stuff from the men's rights movement. And then the communities got smaller and smaller and smaller and more radicalized. Then you had that guy in Canada who drove a van through a group of people too. He was like an incel or whatever. And I fear that some of this stuff, maybe not necessarily anti-vaccine, but the people are going to come out of this renewed anti-vaccine movement looking for a place to go as some of this kind of starts to fall apart. Maybe Pierre Corey takes the money and runs, right? He's like, well, I've made a bunch of money. I'm out of here, because that's, it's not unreasonable to think that somebody like him might do that. Just take the money and disappear. And so then those people would be kind of left homeless in a way in the conspiracy community, and then they're going to join these smaller, more radicalized communities. And I'm just worried that we're going to see, like you were saying, like terrorism coming out of some of this stuff. You know, conspiracy movements haven't not done terrorism. Like think about QAnon, and like January 6th was largely fueled by the QAnon conspiracy theory.
Yeah, I mean, there are, in the anti-vax stuff specifically, you have the like Nuremberg 2, we're going to execute people who supported vaccination. I'm a bit curious about what my fate is at that, you know. If my book's only got 150 sales over the course of, well, both versions over the course of a year, so does that mean I'm, you know, in jail for a few years, hung, you know? I'm sort of looking out for myself here. That's a bit of gallows humor there.
Yeah, I'm thinking, oh man, I'm so fucked in the Nuremberg 2.0. I mean, I've been actively trying to piss these people off. So if they do this, it's the gallows for me. I've been a provocateur.
Yeah, to be fair, I have as well. I go into their reply sections and mess with them.
Well, we're at about an hour here, and that's good because that's how much time that we're going to fill on the live show. So thanks for talking to me. This has been super fun. You seem like a super nice guy, and you're funny, and you know, these matters are serious, but you're able to have a bit of a laugh at how stupid a lot of it is, and I feel like that's the only way to stay sane doing this. Where if people want to get your book, where do you want them to get it? Is it only available on Amazon, or are there other places to get it, maybe where you get a better split?
So it's only available on Amazon. That's the only place I have it.
Okay, and we can, you know, I'll make sure there's a link to it in the show notes. And what's your Twitter handle?
So at Ivor with a capital I, Mectin capital M1.
Very cool. This has been
that's what the letter one. The number one, not
the letter
out,
one. Letter one.
Yeah, I'm not going to live that one down, am I?
I'll make sure that when I put the podcast out of this, that after it cuts off, it just keeps saying the letter one, the letter one, the letter one, the letter one, the letter one. Maybe I'll put a fat beat behind it or something. Thanks for joining me. This has been super fun. I enjoyed talking to you, and maybe we can do this again sometime when you put out the third revision of your book.
Oh God, I don't think there's going to be one. I think my next project is going to be making a puzzle game if I can get the programmers for it.
Very nice. Keep us up to date on that.
All right.
Thanks again.
Will do. All right. Thanks.
If you like what we're doing at Echoplex and aren't into Twitch, please join our Patreon at patreon.com/Echoplex. For $5, you can get every show from beginning to end sent to you as an MP3. Even the stuff we bleep out because it's too spicy for Twitch. Echoplex would not be where we are today if it wasn't for the community support we receive. Find out all the ways you can support the show at echoplexmedia.com/support.